Hey, Scott Schiff, how are you?
Good. How are you, Scott? Now,
Good, good. You seem very relaxed today. Or is it?
uh, well, I'm relaxed because I'm talking to you and I'm not
Okay.
doing work.
I've thought about it, and I think if I was ever an attorney, I think I would be so stressed all the time.
Stress is part of the game, and
Mm-hmm.
you just need to learn how to manage it. Sometimes we're better than others,
Uh-huh.
attorneys doing that. And I think it also depends on the type of work you do, whether you're a litigator or a transactional lawyer.
Right.
Stress is a little less on the transactional side
Mm-hmm.
uh, than on the litigation side. So that's why I gave up being a litigator very early on in my career.
I've heard a lot of people say that. And it sounded really exciting and fun. It seems like people either love the litigation side or it's like it's just too stressed, they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. I mean, I just found there was so much BS involved. It's really, you go to law school and you become a lawyer and you think, I'm going to be a litigator. I'm going to fight for the truth, and we're going to get to the truth, and
Mm-hmm.
that person with the just cause is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it doesn't work out like that. And just the steps and the hurdles and the BS you have to go through to get to that point, so expensive for everyone, causes so much stress, and just got to realize that your opponent, as just as your cause may be, your opponent, his goal is to make it as difficult as possible for your
Mm-hmm.
clients to, get what they're seeking, so that they'll just, settle for less or give up. And that just really soured me on litigation very early on in my career. I realized I did not want to do this.
I totally get that. And sometimes it doesn't matter what the truth is.
Absolutely no.
When there's that different agenda, and so, but yeah, I get it. I totally get it. The your company name. So I don't want to the shift part I got, but is it Sucup?
Sucup.
I
Yeah,
got it.
you got it. Yeah.
Sucup and Schiff. Tell us a little bit about your firm and your partner, and just how things work over there. To give us like a snapshot of who you are.
Okay, so I best place to start with that is that my partner and I have been together as partners since January 1 of 1997.
Really?
A long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so prior to becoming partners, we were part of a firm, a little larger firm than two. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was five or six attorneys. I can't really remember. And that firm went by the wayside, and we kind of looked at each other and said, "Well, we like practicing with one another. We want to try and do something together."
Mm-hmm.
And uh, and we both said yes. And I had learned how to become a transactional lawyer mostly from my partner John when we
Mm-hmm.
were at this prior firm together. Because he's a little older than me with more experience. And so we formed this partnership, like I said, I guess 27 years ago, and we've
Mm-hmm.
been partners since then. We focus on real estate and business transactions.
Mm-hmm.
That's really our focus. We stay away from litigation. We have clients of all shapes and sizes and all different industries, but usually there's some touch point to real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there isn't, but for the most part, there's some sort of touch point, whether it's a lease or our client's a real estate investor or
Right.
developer, or, you know, owner of shopping centers, industrials, apartment buildings, and yeah, like I said, all shapes and sizes. We could represent someone who's forming a new corporation, to sell widgets down the street. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're small and nimble, and we don't have a lot of bureaucracy. It's just the two of us who make all the decisions. We can represent someone like that, and we may just, only represent them in forming their corporation, never hear from them again. Or, later as their careers progress, they'll have a lease. They'll need looked at. They'll say they want to invest in real estate. System with that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And so I've noticed with you, because you and I haven't worked together at this point, but I've noticed that in the group where we mingle, where we network, I don't think there's any other attorney that gets more accolades. All the other attorneys are going to call me and go, "F you, man, Scott Schiff." But I don't think I really think that when it comes to the person who just really gets pointed out and highlighted the most and thanked the most, I think it's you. And everything there's so many. Everyone always has so many great things, and you're always like you are right now, just kind of laid back, So you don't even come to the I don't think I've ever seen you at the big boy table yet because you just sit back and it's rare that you are, but you're
Well,
highly respected. It's clear.
I think I'm not at the big boy table because I always show up at the last minute
I'll say
because I'm always
okay. It'll be
working,
my job to get you there next meeting.
and I don't have time to get there 30 minutes ahead of time and sit at the big boy table. But
Right.
perhaps now with the new meeting space, there's only one table.
Oh.
Right. I don't know if you were at the last. I don't know if you were at the last meeting. Were you?
No, I couldn't make it. I was
Right.
actually going to pick up my son in Santa Cruz.
So we have the new meeting space, and it's
Hmm.
one big square table. So yeah, everyone's kind of equal now.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the main thing I was just pointing out is that your reputation is significant within a bunch of people that are really really well respected. So it just says a lot about you. And so I just wanted to point that out. But let's get to the real estate help because you've got to have some fun stories. Maybe you even have some, pre-transactional, a litigation story or something. I don't know, whatever you want to share.
So I was thinking about this question for a while, and most of my, call them hellish type of deals are on the residential side because while we primarily work in the commercial real estate, arena, we do get involved in residential deals from time to
Okay.
time because some of our more sophisticated clients, like an extra set of eyes on their residential deals, and sometimes they're high value properties that are involved
Mm-hmm.
and have interesting issues, and so yeah, there's been recently some kind of interesting stuff, whether it's hell, exciting, I don't know, but I had a client recently, very recently, we closed a deal. He owned two properties adjacent to each other, each with expensive homes on both properties. And one property was situated at a lower elevation than the other one. And so he was selling the property at the lower elevation
Mm-hmm.
and was really attached to this property and wanted to make sure that whoever he sold it to would give him basically a right of first refusal to buy it back should the person want to sell it
Oh, interesting.
future. And more importantly, he wanted to preserve his view easement. He didn't want this person to develop the property with, a big home or landscaping that would block his view.
Even though he wasn't going to own it anymore. Oh,
That's
I love
right.
this story.
Right. So, while he owned both properties, that wasn't an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So what we could have done at any point in time, my client could have, when he owned both properties, he could
Mm-hmm.
have put an easement in favor of we'll call it the upper property, the one he's retaining on that would encumber the lower property. But he wanted to make sure that whoever was buying the property was going to be comfortable with this. So as part of this deal, during the escrow process, during the due diligence process, we had to really negotiate this view easement, though we really didn't have to, but we wanted to because we wanted our buyer to be comfortable with it. We had
Sure.
to negotiate this very interesting view easement with the buyer, where we had to get surveyors out, and get a map drawn and pictures drawn and showing all this the area where the property being sold there's going to be development on and restrict the height of anything that was going in there so my client's view could be preserved. So I found that quite interesting, and you know, that's something where you really need a lawyer involved in that.
Totally.
You don't want to leave that up to the agents to
Nope.
do it. I don't want to bash agents, but agents have their lanes, lawyers have their lanes, and this kind of another thing that came up, through the process, we're amending the purchase agreement, and it's never good. I don't think it's a good idea to have agents or escrow companies amending purchase agreements where it's something substantive because
Mm-hmm.
they're they're not thinking about the issues that the lawyers are. And we're
Exactly.
always thinking of how are we going to protect everyone in the future? We don't want something bad to happen in the future. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, we got that deal closed. Amazingly, we got the easement recorded. We got a right of first refusal recorded. So we'll see what happens. I hope that the two neighbors, my guy and the guy who sells it to, never have to deal with each other in the future. Right? That it's just that everyone acts the way they're supposed to act. Right? And we don't have
Right.
a problem. So that was kind of
But I
interesting.
couldn't agree more, though. In something like that, the first thing I would say is talk to an attorney, because no matter what our intentions are, or no matter how well we know real estate, we don't know it the way you do, and so
Right.
it's invaluable. Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting, though, because I've never heard of someone retaining. retaining the first right of refusal and a view easement on a property that he doesn't even own because
Right.
it might come back. That's fascinating to me.
Right. Yeah. It just kind of shows the way people are.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. The other one I was thinking about, and this, I wasn't involved at the inception. I was just consulted by, a client. Client had bought a property in the hills here in the San Fernando Valley. And turns out he found that there was this pipe running through the side of his property.
A pipe?
A pipe.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Like a drainage pipe.
Mm-hmm.
It's running through his property, and it appeared to be coming from the property above him on the hill. And it went through the side of his property onto the street that he was on, that his house was on. So when he bought the property, he never had anyone review the title report. He never thought to review the title report. I don't know what his agent told him or not, or if someone read it and said, don't worry about it. But sure enough, I looked at the title report, and the property above him has this easement, actually two easements, to run pipes through his property, drainage pipes from the property above through his onto the street below. Really the only, because at the time they developed the neighborhood, the upper property didn't have access to the city water. No access up there. So that's why they needed these easements.
Right.
But now, present day, there are hookups to the water of the upper property, but the upper landowner is like, nope. We're like, just get rid of the easement. You can connect up on your street. No. So the problem was this pipe kept exploding, causing damage to my client's property.
Wait. So the pipe was still operational?
Oh yeah.
So it's operational, but he had another pipe up top.
No, he could have connected up top, but he didn't want to. He wanted to keep his silly easement. And so now my client's coming to sell his property, and he has to disclose it and the fact that the pipe breaks. Now the guy has been good in fixing it, but it's, the other issue he had is same client is, most people don't get a survey when they buy their residential property. Well, another property he boarded with had a fence and a deck that encroaches on his property. And the deck and the fence is falling apart. My client pulls down the fence, as people do, because it's falling apart because of all the vegetation, and it sees this deck that's encroaching. My client does a survey, finds out the encroachment. Now he's got to disclose this when he sells his house. He never knew any of this when he bought it. So the lesson learned is check your title, right? Have someone review it who's capable of reviewing it, and inspect your property. If there's stuff that looks like it's, encroached or even on the property lines, because we never really know where they are.
Right.
Get a survey, or at least a line survey, so you know what's going on.
Right. That's why I think a qualified and experienced title person is great, because I can look at the title report, but I'm not going to identify things the same way the title officer is. So our guy always looks at it and says, well, you got to be aware of this or this. And did you know this about the fire station down the road and this? And so having the right person advise there, it's like having the right attorney, having the right title guy.
Yeah.
Or if I could, because we'll bring to his attention, hey, this seems awfully close. Should we be concerned about this? And he goes, yeah, because of this, or no, because of that. So it's nice to have someone to go to.
And people generally assume, oh, well, there's a fence there between me and my neighbor. That must be the property line. So many times it's not. It is just not. Because, people just didn't know. They just assumed and they built the fence, and then you have a problem. And then you've probably seen the worst disputes are between neighbors over trees and fences. They're like bloodbaths.
So how does it work? Doesn't it work with a tree that whatever's sticking over, you can cut if it's sticking over into your yard? But what if the roots are coming? What if the roots are coming in and messing with your foundation from the others?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the other person to take care of it. But then there's a whole fight over it. What's causing the damage? Where are they really located? And you got to get a survey. People, rational neighbors would figure out a way and be nice and be cooperative, doing to others as you would unto yourself, right? And come to a solution. But it's amazing how a lot of the times these situations devolve into just wars between neighbors. It's terrible.
I totally agree. And then sometimes people, instead of just sitting down and actually let's just have a conversation. I was in a lawsuit outside of real estate from years ago, and I saw the person recently. And what happened was my partners wanted to sue, and it was this. And finally I said, why? I just don't get why we're fighting over this. I said, why don't I just call him? He's a decent guy. No, he's not, blah, blah, blah. I call him up and I say, look, this is really spiraling out of control. There's got to be a way to make you guys happy and to make my partners happy, because the truth is, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Life's too short. And he goes, totally agree. And we negotiated it within like 20 minutes, got it in writing, done. After 5, 6, 7 years, it was done because we just talked. And it's amazing. It doesn't always work that way, but I find that if you go to someone and you're not rolling over, but you're humbling yourself and just saying, I'm going to be very real with you on this.
Right.
We can fight, and the truth is, if I have to take off the gloves, I'll swing hard, but I don't want to. Can we do this? Can we figure this out? And if you find out what's really bothering them, it's amazing how you can resolve it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It would be a lot better if people dealt with their problems that way. I mean, that kind of relates to, kind of my attitude and how I try and do deals with clients. And they always come to me and say, we got to put together a purchase agreement or a lease for whatever it is. Here's all the terms. And I always stop them and I say, have you spoken to the other side? Are they on board with these terms?
Mm-hmm.
Because the last thing you want to do is hire an attorney to draft something and then put it in front of the other side. And then they say, this isn't the deal.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't agree on this. We didn't agree on that. So I always try to encourage them to say, my clients, sit down on the other side. I want the two of you to come to a meeting of the minds, even if it's just writing on the back of a napkin.
Right.
Give me a list of 10 deal points that you agree to. We can use that as the basis to prepare an agreement. And let's do that without anyone having an attorney involved.
Mm-hmm.
You two sit down and talk. Here's some things to think about. I'll give them, right? But at the end of the day, you guys have to agree, because I don't want to be guessing. And
Right.
I want it to be look, attorneys are expensive, and I want it to be as least costly as possible.
You're going to talk yourself right out of a job.
No. Well, I tell them not to document it. That's the problem. And then they try and document it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
You're back in. There was a deal recently, a probate, where there was basically a grandson who was living in the property for all these years. And then now the property needs to be sold, and he's got to get out quickly. And we're talking about an acre and a half just full of stuff. And at the end of it, everyone was about to roll up their sleeves and go in. And I remember contacting the attorneys and said, everyone needs to stop for a second. What's happening is I talked to him. He's feeling threatened. He feel like he's being bullied. And I asked him what he needs. And you know what he said? Well, instead of getting out on Friday, I want to get out on Sunday. And I'm going like, that's
it.
I talked to the buyers, and the buyers are going, yes, of course. Why would we want to fight over this? And they talk to him, and this big, burly, macho guy softens because the buyers listened to him and they figured it out. And then we just put it in writing, and the deal gets done. It's amazing. It looked like it was going to be a nightmare, but no, the guy just needed to be heard. Now, granted, it could have turned different, but in that case, it was so nice to see someone being heard and then all of a sudden avoiding all the nightmare.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it looked like it was going to go crazy for a while, but it was handled. So you have any other stories you'd like to share?
The only other story, I mean, it's another residential deal.
Well, it's always residential, huh?
It's always residential, really, because commercial just nothing exciting happens. People are usually they're not as emotionally involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
It was years ago. It was up in the hills of LA, and I think about Beverly Hills. My client lives off one of these private roads off of a main road.
Mm-hmm.
The private road was, kind of paved from time to time, and kind of dirt. And not only did my client live on the private road, but there were a couple other houses back there. But my client wanted privacy, and my client took it upon himself to build a gate with a gate code and an electronic motor, right? Put it up there. He's like, well, I'm just going to build it. I'm going to give everyone access to it. It lives behind the gate, and that'll be it.
He did that without asking anybody?
Yeah, just put it in.
That's
And
hysterical.
it was all fine for a while until one of the neighbors wanted to sell their home and realized that the private road, my client didn't own the whole private road. My client actually owned part of the private road. And then another neighbor owned about a third of the private road. And then the people who lived behind my client, they had an easement over the private road, which we only owned 2/3 of, and the other guy owned 1/3 of. And so there was a whole big mess when the guy who owned 1/3 of the private road wanted to sell his house, and he, didn't like how we were restricting access through the gate, and it was wow. And these were, people with a lot of money, expensive homes. And I think what we ended up doing is we came to a resolution that made everyone happy, but my client had to agree, looping back to one of the other stories, that the trees on his property couldn't exceed a certain height to preserve the view from the guy who owned 1/3 of the private road.
Oh, but
but it was very ugly for a while, neighbors, and then they became friends at the end of it. So
that's nice.
yeah.
You don't have a lot of hell stories. I think you're too good at your job.
I guess. Well, in the middle of it seems like it is because no one's happy.
Sure.
They've all resolved.
Well, good. Very good. Do you have any charity or any cause that's dear to your heart that you'd like to have a light shot?
Well, one of my daughters works in the mental health field, and she recommended a charity called the Trevor Project. And it provides mental health services to transgender and bisexual youths, because everyone can use mental health services. So that's what I'm going to stand behind today, the Trevor Project.
Okay, that's great. Great. So we'll make sure that we put the title on that. Is there a website or anything that we can use?
I'm sure there is, and I can send it to you. But
okay, you can just respond in that thread that we have.
Yeah,
Nico.
I'll send it to you.
Excellent. All right. Didn't I tell you this was going to be painless?
It was great. I appreciate it.
It's nice to be able to talk to you. I think the next time I talk to you, I want to have it over a martini or something.
That sounds great. I'm always up for that.
Sounds good.